الصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحابه أجمعين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. سبحانك لا فهم لنا إلا ما فهمتنا إنك أنت الجواد الكريم. قل ربي زدني علما. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. الحج أشهر معلومات فمن فرض فيهن الحج فلا رفث ولا فسوق ولا جدال في الحج وما تفعلوا من خير يعلمه الله وتزودوا فإن خير الزاد التقوى واتقون يا أولي الألباب. صدق الله مولانا العظيم. So continuing with the ayats concerning the farida of Hajj. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here mentions that the Hajj is within certain specific months. Al-Hajju Ashhuru Ma'lumat. So obviously we know that the Hajj is not in a number of months, but the actual rites of Hajj are performed in the month of Hajj itself. However, this refers to the Ihram of Hajj actually. So the Ihram of Hajj is not to be started, you don't begin with the Ihram of Hajj before these months. And if done so, then the majority of the opinion is that it will not be valid, and some of the Imam feel that it is valid, but makruh. Otherwise, Umrah, which was mentioned earlier, it has no time. There's no time frame, there's no time that you cannot enter into the Ihram of Umrah and perform it. However, Hajj has specific months, and that is Shawwal, Dhul Qa'dah, and the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. So these are the Ashhur of Hajj. So, فَمَنْ فَرْضَ فِيهِنَّ الْحَجِّ فَلَا رَفَثَ وَلَا فَسُوقَ وَلَا جِدَالَ فِي الْحَجِّ. And so therefore, who enters into the state of Ihram to perform the Hajj, then in that state one should be extremely careful not to perform these three categories of disobedience. And that is Rafath, Fasuq, and Jidal. Rafath is basically anything which is concerned with marital relations, the very specific marital relations, even the preliminaries, and even the discussion with one spouse or the opposite sex. This is all to be abstained from, because in the state of Ihram, obviously this is all prohibited. And then Fasuq is basically anything which is a disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, going outside of the scope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's obedience. This is called Fasuq. So any type of Fasuq obviously is going to be, impermissible at all times, but particularly in this state. So it adds an extra layer of hurma, an extra layer of sanctity. So it becomes all the more, obscene, and all the more magnanimous in that particular state. Some of the commentators say that what is inferred to here is that Fasuq which is specifically against the orders of Ihram, wearing stitched clothes, using perfume, any engagement in marital relationships, etc. So in any case, any type of impermissible act is going to be obviously magnified in that particular state. And jidal, arguing, disputes. So obviously we've been mentioning for the past several days that arguing in disputes is something that a Muslim is not supposed to be engaged in anyway, period. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned that there is a house in Jannah for those people who leave disputing, even though they might be, the right might be on their side. However, they leave it for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because jidal, arguments and rancor and dissension, this causes, hatred, animosity, and it can even lead up to the misappropriation of property and the spilling of blood. Many wars have started simply on an argument. So any type of argument, obviously, in any state, just as we said about Fasuq, that's not to be done in any case. Now, in the state of Ihram, it becomes even all the more serious. And specifically because, in that state, just as we talked about in the state of fasting, one needs energy to control the temper, so that energy is somewhat, is somewhat lessened, and so the possibility of arguing and rancor in the state of fasting sometimes gets magnified. Similarly in Hajj, because it's a very difficult journey. For the ladies, it's called the jihad of the ladies is Hajj and Umrah. It's tough. People say, well, we go on airplanes and, it's very easy. It's not easy. It's not easy any way that you look at it, even what you have to deal with when you get there, So it's going to, that type of stress and tension, it can cause, shortness of temper. And so one has to be careful. There also is a mention that previously in Jahiliyyah there used to be an argument that where's the waquf and where's other injunctions, and so not to argue about those things. So also in that connection, even though people don't argue about that, everybody knows you stay in Arafat, as the Quraysh used to say, with the hummus, and so we don't leave the haram, we stay in Muzdalifah. A long discussion, I think we mentioned that earlier. However, there are differences of opinions in certain areas of Hajj, right? The different, acceptable schools of thought. There's various opinions. So we could also apply that concept in that regard. If there's difference of opinion among the imma, so there's not to be a rancor and a discussion or arguments about that. Those who see the way of a particular school of thought follow it, and that's fine and acceptable. And those who follow another, that's also fine and acceptable. And then وَالتَّزَوُّدُ فِي خَيْرِ الزَّادِ التَّقْوَى is another a bit lengthy discussion, so we'll continue that tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum